Okay, did we get the mic? Do we have a mic? We got a mic. Well, there's a dog. Hey, there we are. I got my rouge on my eyeball here today. A little hickey from a friend at jiu-jitsu. How's everybody doing this morning? Get my phone all situated. It's, don't need some client or somebody texting me or whatever. Okay, let's get this hair out of the way. I think I'd have this shit together by now, right? It's only been like a fucking year of me dealing with this shit. It's all good though. I'm doing a show for one. You right there. We can be a little patient. All right, y'all. It's not the best, but it'll work. Welcome to Grinding Gains. I am John. I guess the channel's name's RFO John, meaning Range Fitness Online. I just didn't know how to fucking make a Twitch channel name, so we got stuck with it and we had a few followers and we just never decided to change it. I'm sure I could, but fuck it. We're doing this shit live. Range Fitness Online. Yeah, we're a company, we're a business. I know. Dirty, scummy sales bastards invading Twitch. But look, I ain't trying to sell you nothing. All I'm trying to do here is help you out with your technique. You got an exercise that you're working on that you're not quite sure about, not feeling good about. Maybe you feel pain during the exercise, or worse yet, maybe you feel pain afterwards and you can't pinpoint why or how or whatever you're doing to make it happen. If that's you, well, that's what we do here. We help people figure out what their issues are, help them overcome them without the need of hopefully surgery or having to we'rely on pills or other passive techniques to help themselves get out of discomfort and pain. So if that sounds like you, hang out with us. If you feel like we've applied to giving you some value or you've learned something, feel free to follow and share us and all that jazz. So that way, again, we can help share the word, as it were. Without further, we gotta put the little check mark here. I'm a terrible social influencer, media influencer. I don't want to be a goddamn influencer. I just want to help you out with your lifts. Or just a movement. So without further ado, let's get into it, y'all. If anybody's there, always feel free, let me know. We always like the emojis. We got a few guys out there that like to communicate purely through emojis, so if that's you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Quick bit of business, and then we'll get into it. If you're looking for a workout plan, I ain't gonna fucking write it for you, that's cool. But we do have a website. Oh my God, he has a website. RangeFitnessOnline.com. It's so beautiful, isn't it? Look at it. Paul made it. I didn't do shit for it. But what we do have is, again, unfortunately, it's not the most, in your face. But if you want to get a free mobility or a free workout, we have a prompt sheet for you. You just put your name, put that in there, whatever your email is. I don't care. You can make a fake, be a temporary email, could be your personal email, whatever. Put it in there. We will send you an LLM prompt that you can put in whatever, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever suits your fancy, to get yourself a whole workout just spat out for you in a matter of seconds. The more details you put in that sucker though, the better and more well-rounded it will be for you. And with that, just a quick flash of it. Let's see here. Can't show you the goodies, I gotta go find it first. Let's see, it's shared with me. The Lean Mean AI Fitness Prompt Machine. Open up. Open. And so you will be given a, access, permission, not permit, I don't know. You'll get, to get to view this. You can't edit it or anything like that in here. You'd have to copy it into your own Word document, your own Google Drive, whatever. Figure if you can make a Twitch account, you probably figure this out. Not to assume too much about people. In any case, all right, this is just a little thing here, just telling you what's going on. Obviously, we are not healthcare professionals. Well, maybe it's not obvious, but Now, you know, we're not healthcare professionals. I can't see you. I can't do anything for you other than just talk to you through the internet. However, we always recommend make sure you get checked out by your doctor or go to a urgent care clinic or a quick clinic, something like that. Not urgent care, that's the wrong one. But go out there, get yourself, make sure you got you're healthy enough to exercise. Otherwise, you know, you're just assuming that risk on your own. Paul and I always say, you know, the best thing you can invest in yourself is going into an annual physical, getting your blood work drawn, and just making sure everything is okay, right? The sooner you can catch any of those little things, the cheaper and easier it is to fix them. Just like with anything else. Then we got a little bit of chitty chat here, and then some other things to kind of go over, just so you get an understanding of what's included or what it can and can't do. Like I tell all of my clients, I am at best fourth on the list. If you ain't sleeping, if your nutrition is off and your hydration is off, it doesn't matter how good of a workout you think you're doing, you're not going to progress. Let's talk about that, because I just realized I've been making a huge fucking mistake on my own. I've been really harping on trying to make sure I get plenty of protein in my diet. I've been trying to cut out a lot of the trash calories. And I've been really trying to be more mindful about eating the broad, leafy, green vegetables. Right, everything, you know, yeah, that's all the good things. What the fuck's he going on about? What could he possibly have to do different? Fuck, I wasn't eating enough carbs. I mean, not that I don't like carbs, fuck, I love carbs, but because I was putting such a high emphasis on trying to make sure I get my protein intake, and because I was trying to make such a high emphasis of making sure I got leafy green, broccoli, spinach, whatever it was, Brussels sprouts. Like I'd have meals that were broccoli and chicken. I was missing that big component of like rice or the potatoes. You know what happened? A couple things. One, probably the most quickly apparent, was that I fucking reeked of ammonia. Right, just this weird, like, oh, so funky. Just took a dip in some, just like I said, ammonia. And other things. Man, would I be tired? I get on a workout and have to take like a 2-hour nap just to recover. And so I did my soul searching and kind of re-looking at the things I was doing, and I realized I was missing this big portion. And so what was happening is I just wasn't getting enough calories in, one. No, maybe not more calories, but I wasn't getting enough carbs in to help keep me fueled. Sure, I had enough protein and enough amino acids in my body, but there wasn't enough carbs for my body to keep burning. So what was ending up happening is breaking down the amino acids. It was releasing a lot of, I guess, nitrogen into the body, and thus putting a lot of ammonia smell through my sweat. So right, you know, even the fitness dudes get it wrong. But if we don't have those pillars together, sleep, nutrition, and water, what we do in the gym or outside or whatever it is that we work out ain't gonna count for a lot. So that's what this is. Don't skip those important parts. I get it's a journey and we gotta slowly build up everything, but let's put first things first as well. Getting off the soapbox, let's slide into the prompt. All right, and so here below, we got this little line here for you. Again, the delineation. Everything from the optional on down, right, is the prompt. And it's not a big prompt, right? It's just, you know, whatever that is, 50 lines. Anywhere you see the little brackets, that's places for you to put in your information. All right, so work it in your Drive, your Google Drive, or your Word document, fill it in, and then you'll copy and paste that and drop it into whatever. Again, it's we use Gemini, mostly just because that's our suite, so to speak, for the business. But if you like ChatGPT, or if you're one of the weirdos out there that like Copilot, so be it. Fucking run with it and make it work, baby. And it will give you a workout. It will be very nice and very clean. And then off you go, right? Fucking free. Save yourself $20 or $300 or whatever workouts go for nowadays. So let's get into it. This is one of my favorite memes I made. I hear this all the time, right? People say, oh, man, I had a really great deadlift session, but I felt my low back the entire time. And you go to a lot of places out there and they go, ah, that's fine. Don't worry, man, the deadlift looked great. You went up and down with the bar. Whoa. But if you're feeling your low back or anything acutely during any lift, it is not fine. That is one of the first signs that shit's not going right. My buddy, he's a chiropractor, and he actually was very influential in helping me get my shit together from a major hip imbalance and injury that I had developed from back when I was working at the valve shop. And one of the things he said to me that has stuck with me to this day, and I share it with anybody and everybody that listens: pain is the last to show, and it's the first to go. So when we are feeling that pain, that ice pick, that searing, burning sensation, that nagging sense that just won't go away no matter how much Aleve or Tylenol or rest you take, that is a signal that your body is about to break. When we start doing corrective exercises, when we start doing the things that the body needs to get back into alignment, those senses will disappear. Almost as if it was never an issue, and we will forget how we got to where we were. But that doesn't mean we're out of the woods, right? It's the last to go. Or I mean, it's the last to show, but it's the first to go. So let's say we got a forward tilted shoulder, and we just pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing and pressing. And at the end of our session, man, like, yeah, we were moving the weight hard and it felt good, but then we just had this searing pain coming right in through here. Or maybe you get something between your scapula, right along the medial edge, the inside edge of your shoulder blade along the spine. And it's just an ice pick, like someone just came in, et tu, Brute. Gave you a little Julius Caesar effort, right? Stabbed in the back. Right? You already had the forward tilted shoulder or the internally rotated shoulder. I guarantee it. And then through the effort of the exercise, we hypercontracted and we started over lengthening into that area. And now we're starting to feel that connective tissue about to say, fuck you, we can't hold on much longer. Any of those sensories we get in between our ears and that gray matter up in there, it feels grindy, shearing, stabbing, whatever it is that your knee-jerk reaction is to try to describe that sensation, that's what's happening. So if you only feel your back during your deadlifts, guess what? You're basically only using your low back to stabilize and lift up that weight. Sure, you might have a hella strong back, but it's gonna come at a cost eventually, right? Just like hanging out in the house full on fire, it's gonna get you. So, enough preachy preach. Let's get into the meat. So if you ever do have a question about a lift, and whether you can't afford a personal trainer, you don't have access to quality trainers, or you're just, maybe you're kind of like me, got a little social anxiety, that's why we hang out behind the camera. That is why we created the subreddit. It's why we created Range Fitness. It's why we created Range Fitness or RFO John channel here. So feel free to come into our subreddit. All right, it's by the same name, RangeFitnessOnline. We're very creative. Come to our subreddit. Feel free to create a post and let us see your video. Feel free if you want to. Again, Reddit is, if you don't know it, it's a completely anonymous website. Anonymous. Username, like, I'm Flashy Caregiver. I didn't make that name up, but it gave it to me, right? So put your profile, get yourself in here, put a video or picture, whatever it is. Tuesdays, Paul and I, we kind of do like a lecture series, if you will. I was thinking of it kind of like a college lecture or a college class. And then Thursdays, I think more of it is our lab practicals, right? We get to look at the body in motion versus talking theoretics. We still talk a lot of theoretics though. So let's scroll down to last week. I think last week was Chuck Norris. Beat the hell out of that pain. Good seeing you, Chuck. All Alrighty here. So the first one I got up on for myself is going to be an incline chest press. And so I was supersetting this. Again, if you ever see this 30-pound easy curl bar near me, very likely I was doing my pullovers. We'll talk about that here a little bit later because I did some chest press this morning. Same kind of superset motion. Get my little riding pad together here. Too much shit. So many wires. In an age of wireless technology, I still got a fuck ton of wires. Get our little pin, set that right there. Okay, let's run it back. So I am working an incline chest press. All right, and so an incline chest press, you can see back here, there's several different settings, and depending on what part of the chest you're wanting to work or your shoulders you want to work, will change that angle. So nose itches. A little flatter the bench, the more it will hit the chest, but proper, so to speak, more like a chest press or a bench press sense. The more we tilt up, right, it's going to come more and more up the chest towards the collarbone as far as what will be stressed and what will be doing the lift. And so we get to this kind of 60 to 45 degree angles. I think, what is it, not 36? Below 60, above 30, right, is going to be that kind of upper chest. We get above 60, and now we're going to get more and more front delts. Again, not wrong, not right. Just what is it that you want to work on? What is it you need to develop or want to develop? And then we use the appropriate tool to get there. My football coach, oh fuck. High school football, old Coach Hernandez. We'd be maybe getting water, or maybe we have to go to a different area for practice. And just like in high school, we'd be just kind of walking or light jogging. You come back behind you, get there. Come on, get there. Yeah, from Texas. So, anyways. So incline chest press. So one thought on this. I always say there are about 7 basic movements. Probably get a little more pedantic and maybe call it 8 if we talk about core engagement. 7 compound movements. We have our hip hinge. We have a squat. Hip hinge, and by hip hinge I also mean deadlift. So hip hinge, deadlift, squat, lunge. So that pretty much encompasses the entire lower body. Then we have the upper body. We have a horizontal push, and then we have a horizontal pull. And by consequence, if we can go horizontal, that means we can go vertical. And again, so we have a vertical push, and then a vertical pull. And if you understand and can connect, if you understand the basis of those 7, any exercise that you can come up with, right, it builds from those 7. And then I was saying 8, again, core engagement, and that's the big buzzy word, so to speak. But learning how to engage your core properly and maintaining that connection throughout any exercise you do, right? That is step 1 before anything, I feel. Right? If we aren't connected to the core, right, then all we are doing is compensating. So in an incline press, this is, to me, I think of it just like a horizontal press, in that I'm trying to keep, let's get a snippet. My head's a little far back maybe, but it'll be good enough for us to just get started here. Where'd the pin go? All right, and so in a chest press, right, I'm thinking about my elbow tip, and I want that sucker, I cue it as tilted forward, tilted to the space in front of it. By consequence, though, I'm also trying to make sure that my wrist is staying right above that sucker. Fucking shaky ass hands, man. Good thing I'm not a surgeon. I always tease clients, who's got 2 dumbbells and is a badass? Forget what movie or joke that's from, right? But we want to, again, roughly have the thumbs pointing back at you, right? We don't, again, you can do different, but again, by all general skewing, thinking about those thumbs pointing back at you, whether it's chest press, overhead press, all of that press. And that's how we set up. I don't know if I like red for the good, the ideal. Now, other things that's happening here, right? Just like a chest press, is I'm, again, externally rotating my shoulders. I'm trying to depress them, pulling them down away from my ears ever slightly, which then is making my chest be as broad as it can. I had this stupid thought this morning. Was it back in the day, you know, they're kind of, I don't know if it's not a polite way of referring to women, but you know, they'd be like, hey, look at that broad over there. So if women were broads, does that mean men were narrows? Anyways, so we're trying to keep our chest big and broad, right? And you always hear people talk about trying to get this big stretch. And that's what we're effectively doing. By pulling our shoulders back, it's helping us lengthen into the chest. And then when we make the push, right, we're contracting through the chest. Now that being said, we're gonna highlight this at the top of the press, that we still wanna keep the chest as broad as we can. We don't end up collapsing into the chest, right? And then we're starting to, again, compensate. Well, either you're compensating or, again, we're just going into extreme positions that are gonna, again, invite movement imbalances. They're going to invite hypercontractions. It's taking away this equalness or this balance to the joints. We want tension on both sides, right? This idea of a tug of war, right? And you don't want one side winning the tug of war when it comes to your joints, right? Because that ends up where we start ending up with like forward tilted shoulder, or again a collapsed chest, and then you see these people in the world everywhere. Right, if you think I'm lying, go somewhere where there's a bunch of joggers and just take mental notes of all the different jogging forms you may see. You're going to see what I call washing machine runners, right? You're going to see people who aren't actually pumping their arms. I think they look like they're drumming versus pumping the arms. All right, you may see their legs kind of just swinging all over. Oh, how nice and Ivan Dia. Oh, well, you can go take your cheap viewers and get the fuck out of here. We don't want cheap viewers. We want high value, classy viewers. No cheap viewers, even though this shit's free. So you're now gonna make me, you don't make me, but I elect to. Report your ass. We don't need your shit around here, man. Go find a better way of earning a keep. Oh my God, this is always the problem though, like so much. I'm gonna report your ass. Spam, yeah, spam. And not the good spam, like not that spam's great, but at least it's nutritious. Right, Hawaii has made a whole bunch of great dishes with spam. This is not that kind of spam, y'all. Stream, what's your shit called? Stream boo? Stream boo. No. Stream boo. Bullshit. Yes, we shall block this user. Thank you, Ivan. Enjoy your day. Alrighty. Back to what we were talking about. Fucking A, Ivan. Got me all confused what I was talking about now. Anyways, so again, chest press. Want to keep our shoulders nice and stable. Big, broad chest throughout the whole motion. And then, I guess one thing too, just for me, that I'm constantly working with besides my right shoulder issues, you can see a little bit difference already in my hands. And how my hands are appearing. These fuckers still up on here. Oh, we gotta delete their comments too. God bless. God bless. Let's see here. Yeah, can I just delete this fucker's account? Block report. Warn. Man, just want to delete the message. Oh, it's not stream. Oh, it is still stream boo. Good. I have to fucking go into auto mod for that too, aren't I? Lord have mercy. You can always appreciate the first chats, but there's always a hassle. Okay, that's not it. Whatever. Whatever. We got more important things to focus on because I gotta leave in about 50 minutes and we got a lot to cover. All right, so let's see the presses and let's go from there. Oh, we were talking about my hands real quick. Okay. So you can see on my left hand, it looks to me that we have a little bit more of my hand rotating this way, right? So less of me holding a platter. We're back over here, it looks like my wrist is a little more, let's say, broken backwards. Terrible arrow, terrible arrow. Right, more of like I'm holding a little bit of a platter on my hand there. And so really and truly what we want to get is not so much this, but again, that knuckles stacking over the wrist. And this goes a lot of way, like this fixes so much shit. But we got these things called cell phones. You may know them as a cell phone. How do we hold a cell phone, right? We always are going to have this extended wrist, as it were, right? This broken wrist as we look at our phones. No one really holds their phone up here and rolls their hand into them. Maybe down here, but again, a lot of us end up with this broken wrist position. Maybe it's not your phone. Maybe it's your mouse. Right? Again, no one uses their mouse like this. Everybody has their hand like this in their mouse, right? Drop the camera down. Can I rotate it? It does. That one doesn't rotate. We've got to rotate the whole monitor. All right, but again, when we're using our mouse or again our wrists, we're going to be upwards. So again, what does it all matter, John? What the fuck? Nitpicking on everything. Well, it just highlights the fact that we have these little habituations every day, and they're going to dictate where we rest our joints or where our joints find home, so to speak. And so in our workouts, I really coach clients and I really try to share this concept with people that our workout should be like a tune-up. While yes, we get all kinds of other kinds of benefits, we get strength and cardiovascular and blood flow and endorphins and burning cortisol, all the things, right? All the things. But those are going to happen no matter what. So if you can take just the smallest mental bandwidth and start paying attention to where you're holding yourself in your lifts, where your joints are. Now, I'm not saying everybody got to go pay attention where their wrists are at the get-go. If you're just starting out, start with the bigger blocks. Get the big rocks taken care of first. So we focus on core engagement. We're going to focus on where our shoulders are during our lift. The idea of this kinetic chain. All right, so if we think about our kinetic chain is our feet, our knees, our hips, our shoulders, our elbows, and then that dome. All right, and we can keep in mind in our head where all of those are throughout any lift you're doing. Hey John, this is chest press. What the fuck does it matter where your legs are? How many of y'all cross y'all's ankles on these kinds of things? Or better yet, let's think about pull-ups. How many of y'all cross your ankles when you're doing pull-ups? Or maybe even yet, you look kind of pot-belly when you're doing your pull-ups. What's happening is you're not connected to your kinetic chain, so therefore you're not connected to your core. Crossing the ankles or your legs during those efforts then pulls one of your hips a little bit lower. You're again creating an unconscious bias by crossing those legs. All right, and so one adductor is going to be a little bit more engaged than the other. All right, you're going to have one hip a little more flexed than the other. However, if you can keep your thighs together, put a little tension on them, right? Even maybe put a little flexion in your ankles, because a lot of people have really, contracted calves. all of these things just will go into overall better performance for your body when you're out in the world. All right, and so taking it back to me as well. I mean, why else are you here? But to my lifts, and then again to some of my, let's call it dysfunctions and compensations that I'm working through. All right, my right shoulder is not as stable as it needs to be. We'll talk about that a little bit later here. Thus, down my kinetic chain to my hand, my forearm has to work a lot fucking harder than it should to keep everything stable. Thus, my hand and wrist will start adopting this broken wrist position such that I can hold on to that dumbbell, because holding it here just absolutely zaps all the effort that I have into there, right? So I think I've beaten that one into the ground enough. Let's actually see the lift. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. So this is one of the biggest things I see people do wrong on incline presses. And I can't believe I forgot to bring it up. So everybody focuses on the chair, the back of the chair. And that's important. We were talking about that the angle of the chair will dictate. All right, so here's that chair where it's currently locked. So we got like 3 other settings down here, and maybe, yeah, 3 other settings up there. And then you can see here, we also have more settings. So many settings, it's kind of worse than a TV. So anytime you adjust the back of the bench, if you're able to, I encourage you to then also alter your seat. Many times people will leave this seat such as it's at the flat position. And it's not, again, the end of the world. But what this will do is it'll invite you to be a little more sway back. It's going to invite you to overextend through that low back a little bit more, potentially putting more pressure on your low back. Potentially, you know, creating more herniations or bulges in the spine. It also, again, makes it harder for you to engage into your core, which is how all those other things end up occurring, right? Because if you think about it, right, that right now that thing's holding me up there as a proper chair. If that thing's down, then my body will be invited to kind of slide out and down of the chair. So again, getting the chair portion, the seat portion in an appropriate alignment with everything else. And I'm gonna get into some chest press where I'm doing our floor presses, and you'll see me again adopt this flex tip position. And all of that again is to help me, one, engage my core and help me bias my core engagement without having to be as cognizant or mentally focused on it. And the knees come up and towards the chest, helps tilt the pelvis back into its neutral position. And again, all of that will also help us engage those muscles. Again, a short muscle is a strong muscle. So by, again, making our hips shorter, that again helps our, hips be strong, but it also is going to help us engage that core as we extend into our pelvis, making the abdominals longer. A long muscle is a weak muscle. Alrighty, let's watch this guy do some pushing. Push, push, push it up. Alright. So on any chest press, any type of pressing, we're always trying to have this sense of tilting those elbows in. Right? We don't want them to flare out. And when we end up doing when we're flaring out, right, we're internally rotating our shoulders. We're going to be compressing into this more, and we're not going to be creating as stable of an environment for our shoulders. If you think about it like a piece of braided rope, right? A braided rope always can be rotated into itself, becoming tighter and more structurally sound or more stable. Right, we start unwinding the braided rope and it becomes loose and starts fraying and coming apart. Our bodies are just a bunch of ropes or rubber bands all connected at different points. And so when we externally rotate our shoulders, this puts more tension in the shoulder, creating more of a stable environment in the joint. Thus, we can have a more solid foundation to push against. A stable environment is a safe environment, right? Like, however you want to like break that out. I mean, you know, we have a home that we come into and it's just chaos every time we come home. Like, that's a lot of stress. No one wants to actually be there for the most part, right? But if you know what to expect when you come home, it can be good. You know, hopefully it's a good home, right? But if you know what to expect, you can be more self-assured about what you're going through and having. Again, same kind of phenomenon in your body. The more stable we're in our shoulders, the stronger we can be in our movements, and just less dysfunction being invited into the joint. If it's unstable, lots of compensations are going to be occurring, and again, more injury invitations are being sent. Now, during our pressing, we try to pause this next one. So again, we can still see kind of how this hand isn't quite right. We're not getting full elbow extension on this right side. The other thing I'm really working on is this idea of tilting the elbows inward. And that's the constant thing I'm trying to work on here. Now, other landmarks to really be trying to focus on, and again, we can see I'm not doing it quite well enough on this right side from this perspective, but is trying to keep the wrist, well, maybe a straight line. Nope, it made an arrow. But trying to have a straight line between our elbow and our shoulder, right? Our elbow and our wrist. And once we get to the top of that lift, right, you can also think about that line being, again, right over our shoulder as well. It's a little crooked, but. Anyways, we get that idea of the sense of stacking the joints at the top of the press, even if it's at an angle, still having that angle assessed for, or stacking the joints no matter what that is. Even like an overhead press, we're gonna have that idea of trying to stack the wrist over the elbow over the shoulder. Again, still see here, we're trying to, again, be nice and broad across the shoulders, keeping, again, not collapsing into the chest while we're making these efforts. Now, you also notice here, I don't really allow my elbows to go below my shoulders. And part of this is I'm actually just trying to put a little more stressors on my delt and not so much the chest. But again, we get to certain places, especially here, like we get the elbows coming lower than the chest, getting behind like the plane of the back. It's just going to invite more forward tilt of our shoulders. And if you're already dealing with that dysfunction, going into it more isn't going to help, because you're going to be stuck there as you try to come back out. And so we want to, again, create that stable environment, that shoulders, pull the shoulders back and then pressing them down. And then maintaining that sensation. You can do that experiment on yourself, right? Is if you just pull your elbows back and no tension, you can go very far back. Look at this. This one's flaring out on me. As we pull back, right, you can get very far back into that. Whereas if you have your arms out in front, pull the shoulders back, depress them, and then when you start pulling back, you will notice a distinct restriction form, and you're not able to go as far back anymore. And that's what you want to do. You're creating these conscious biases so that way you don't create more unconscious biases or unwanted unconscious biases. So I'm thinking, again, on this one is like I'm trying to make, oh, that's not a straight line, but just trying to get about 90 degrees at my shoulder on the way down, and then pressing up. So this, again, keeps tension on the delt and still has tension across the chest. And again, we get to these other points where you get so low that there isn't really any tension on the things you're trying to work. And so that also is a, not ideal. Last thought I'll share on this is I kind of always think about like a balloon when I'm lifting. And so when we inhale into a balloon, what ends up happening? The thing goes up. And then if you were to exhale, which you shouldn't exhale from a balloon, but if you were to, exhale or kind of, right then the balloon would deflate and fall down. And so that same idea on our presses is I think about exhaling, so we blow the balloon up, and then as we inhale, the balloon collapses. Right, and just using that to help yourself sync up your breath. Again, this is just a good habit to start building into your lifts, as it, one, will help you be more rigid through the core. It'll help you start working that diaphragm, which many people lack awareness or control over. The other thing is it's going to help you be more rigid through your lift, right? If we're making that exhale all at the same time, you will have a stronger expression. Whereas if you're holding your breath or anything of that nature, that's where you see people passing out and, damn near killing themselves in the weight room, is they're not breathing during their lifts. And well, if you're not breathing, they're just like, what's that little Windows noise? You're gonna get that little Windows noise, and then breathing is one of those things, like you either choose to do it or you will do it one way or the other, right? And so make sure you're consciously breathing. This is going to help make sure you're not getting lightheaded during lift. If you are consciously breathing during your lifts and you still are getting lightheaded, well, it might be something else going on there, right? Maybe a blood pressure issue, maybe your low blood sugar, many different things could be going on. But again, you want to take away those, get the low-hanging fruit out of the way, right? So make sure we're breathing. Again, all good things come from breathing. Moving on. Alrighty. This is my new passion project for myself, besides fixing my goddamn right shoulder. This is a front rack squat. So it's a different variation of a squat, but it's still a squat. And so when we think about squatting, all right, the first thing is you got to find a good house to go sneak into. No, when we're squatting, all lower body efforts live and die with a hip hinge. All right, the beginnings of a deadlift or a squat are all the same. It's all a little hip hinge. And so when we're talking about hip hinges, we're talking about trying to get our weight in the heels. Let's see here. We'll get the next rep. Little hinge, little hinge. Oh, that wasn't quite it. Right about there. Right there. That's good enough. And so here again, we're trying to keep, I think my shoulders is going to make a line or an arrow. Well, it is what it is. We're going to fucking leave it. And so from our shoulders across to our hips. All right, we want to keep those two square to whatever's in front of us. And we have this thing called a spine that connects these two suckers. What does that look like? It's like a capital I to me, right? So our Roman numeral 1. And so we want to have this sense that from our shoulders and our hips and our spine, that relationship, we kind of see this capital I throughout the entire lift. And so when we begin the lift, again, it's a hip hinge. All right, we're going to push the butt back. This helps us load into our hamstrings and glutes. And then we work on bending at the knees to create our descension. And one kind of the ways I think about it is our hips are helping us displace our weight, and the knees, if you will, are helping us lower the weight. And so any exercise, whether it's chest press or squats, we always have this game of center of mass. Right? Whether you think of it that way or not, that's what's happening. You're maintaining the center of mass somewhere. Right? It's if the center of mass is not over your base, then you're gonna fall. And if you don't fall, well, then you're going to be recruiting a lot of other muscles and things of that nature to prevent yourself from falling. So whenever we're doing things like squats or deadlifts, we have this bar, and that's just not the thing that we're using for adding weight to the lift. But we want to think about wherever this bar is traveling, we want to get it to stay over the midline of your feet. I like to think about, about right here, so on each foot, right about mid-arch or over the shoelaces, somewhere below the knot, but about mid-foot. And you'll figure this out for yourself as well when you start working or paying attention to it if you haven't already. And so this is, again, any squat work, we're thinking about our heel, the outer edge of our foot, the big toe pad, and then that makes this little triangle thing. And commonly you'll hear this referred to as a tripod foot. And so we want to have that tripod foot engaged the entire time. Now, if you watch a lot of lifters, especially if they're doing programs like starting strength, they'll emphasize an externally rotated foot. And when we do this, let's see. Yes, they will engage maybe a little more of their glutes. Right, but again, it's all about being stable. Right, and so if we have this as our feet, I know it's terribly foot drawing, and then we have this line coming through, right? Like you can see how that would be more, you could balance better, right? You can put pressure on the forefoot and pressure on your heel. However, the broader we get our foot, and the more we rotate them out, again, this is an interpretive drawing class right now, then we still have that line that we're kind of trying to stand on. Make a line. Now we're like tightrope walking. Right, yeah, sure, you can still put a little pressure here and there, but we're tightrope walking. What this also does, that's not ideal for us, is from the side view, right? Again, ideally, if we're looking at the back of the shoe here, we'd want it flat relative to the ground. Well, that didn't work. All right, so we want the shoe to be flat relative to the ground. Now, what a lot of times happens for people is because we are rotating that foot out, they are going to be, that's not the best representation. All right, but they're going to be a little more inviting themselves. Oh my God, we made a circle. So they're going to be inviting a little more tilt to their foot, and such that they're rolling their foot over. And that's not ideal for so many reasons. And if you can think about just how your limbs would be, what color should we be? We'll go with Lego Man. And you can see how your all right, we can have the assumption like here that the leg would be up overhead, so to speak. Right, because our shins and our tibias and our fibias are just fucking straight lines. They're bones. And then if over here, we can see how that's going to be inviting this. And so just from a simple thinking of like force vectors, right, this one, we're going to get more force going down into the whole foot. Whereas here, you can see that the bone is going to want to push this way. But which way is gravity? Gravity! That's all I know of that song. Gravity is always down. Right, and so now we have basically a shearing force happening here, because the mass and everything is going this way, but your bone is trying to put the tension that way. And so there's going to be this effort to where now we're putting more force, through this outer edge of the foot. And again, it's going to tend to create some imbalances on you. Again, you'll see it in your shoes. If you're one of these individuals I'm kind of talking about, you'll likely have like more of the outer edges of your shoes are crushed down, or you'll see maybe just that different deformation in the overall shoe. You may find it hard to get your foot down to the ground. You may have like a collapsed arch even. It's probably a different issue, but anyways, you'll see this just in your shoe. Even if you're using some sort of lift shoe, maybe it's the leather is being overly stretched on the outer side of the little toe, as again your foot is pushing towards the outside of the shoe more so than pushing straight down into it. All right. So all that to be said, going back into our bar, right? We want the mass, again the gravity of the bar, the normal force of the bar is going straight down, right? And we want that to again be hitting through our feet as evenly dispersed as we can. And that all again starts with displacing it from the hip hinge, and then keeping that, having this idea that is that we're going straight down with the bar as it were, and we're kind of just moving our body around it. Now for front rack squat, brother, sisters, whew, a lot of shoulder mobility requirements here. And so you see here, I'm just using a bar and I got 5s on the outside, so total of 55 pounds right now. You know, again, I'm working on my right shoulder, trying to make sure that sucker stays clean for me. So this is still, you can see me kind of rolling my feet out here a little bit. I'm gonna fight that left foot a little. And so, in any event, it's still working the mechanic of a squat. So maybe you don't have the shoulder mobilities for this. Something like a goblet squat is a good precursor for squats in general, but also just working this and getting that sense of the weight in the front of you. And then you can do various other corrective exercises depending on what your imbalances are to work on, again, trying to create this space to where you can create that front rack position. And again, a lot of length in the lats are required, length through your pec minor, all of this stuff. We need a lot of connection to the posterior of your back, or the posterior chain of the back, so your rotator cuff engaging and creating that stable environment throughout the whole lift. But again, once you understand how a squat works, then you just work on your squat, and then you can spend more mental energy trying to keep this and being aware of what's happening up here. You can even see, like for me here, that's probably not too bad. Bottom of the hole there. Now we're talking about cell phone hands, right? But again, we can see how it's hard for me to keep a full grip on here. And the more we can try to create that grip and create that drive of the elbow, right, that means again we're getting a good job of externally rotating our shoulders. We're doing a good job of elevating the elbow tips to create this shelf across the collarbone. And even here on this other hand, you can see it opening up a little bit. And so all these are just little things that we can work on and build up. Now you'll see a lot of times, I feel like you can get your pinkies in there, that's great. You can still get those thumbs wrapped around. Where it gets kind of a little dicey is, again, people start doing like little T-Rex grips because they can only get those 2 fingers in there without all kinds of fallaciousness happening to them. Other times you'll see people do kind of I think it was like the mummy, or kind of a zombie style, where they just cross their arms over their chest. This camera looks crooked, making me feel crooked. Maybe I am just crooked, I don't know, fuck. But anyways, right, so again, this is where we're sacrificing maybe our shoulder mobility for more squat effort. And I'm not gonna tell you it's wrong, it's your body, do what you like. But again, I think that's a mistake. Right, so if we don't have so your workout program calls for you to do front rack squats, but you just have shit shoulder mobility, and you still feel like you gotta work that front rack squat, I would invite maybe going with kettlebells or dumbbells, right? You can still kind of work those front rack positions a little bit with it not as intense of a position with requirements of the bar. Or again, going to something like a goblet squat and then using some correctives on your off days to help enhance that mobility requirement without, again, not flaring in the ribs even, but helping yourself create that ability and space in your body to be able to get there. See? Fucking Caffienated again. All right. Who's that dude walking around in the background? Fucking nerd. So we're looking at some front raises here, and I love this variety. So a lot of times when I see people doing front raises, it gives me a little heartburn. A lot of times we're doing palms down. Feels even weird for me to do that. So again, palms down is not wrong. However, when we do palms, when we do palms down though, right, again, we invite and we almost have to go to an internally rotated shoulder. Right, and that's going to, again, invite shoulder dysfunctions and whatever. The other thing you see this athlete doing here is they are controlling that weight. A lot of times on front raises, people to be. And so really excellent keeping that control. When we also go supinate or palms facing up to the sky, this is going to put more intensity on that front delt. Two, it helps you just be in a more externally rotated position. So we are unconsciously biasing ourselves just by the fact that our palm is facing up to be in a better position for both joint health and activity or attacking, if you will, that desired muscle group. Now, looking at this particular person, what I would see, the couple of things that stand out to me that would be some coaching up. That's actually really good spot right there. Like I'm like, it's so bright. So bright, it's so bright. Look at them guns. Like an animal. Popping out. Look at them delts. Look at them biceps. Beautiful. It's my quad. So elbows right here, they're below the shoulders. Which again, I don't want to say is wrong, but it's not right. In that this is again giving the delts just a little bit, and if you need it and take it. But the gain should be keeping the weights in front of our pelvis. Right, so there's this dopey ass piece of equipment that it makes me shake my head when I see people using it. But it's this little curvy thing that you drape over your neck, and it's this plate that sits across your ribs, and it looks like what's that, woo face? But it is used for people who, I don't know why. It's an isolation effort, and again, it's a tool people use to help themselves not have to worry about their shoulder mechanics. But they'll use it for bicep curls, and so you push the plate and the plate's resisting against you to get your curls. I want you to envision having like that plate or a bar coming between you and your ribs. And so when your elbow is in front of there, this delt is always cooking. It's always in tension. It never gets to rest during your set. And so that's just going to be a huge thing. Like it's a small little change that just like will make that exercise way more difficult. The other thing that immediately jumps out to my eye is right here. So this foot is pointed, maybe 15, 20 degrees more than this foot, at least to my eye, The exact angle isn't what matters, but just being aware of these things. So that way, again, one, you can do something about it, and two, you don't allow it to get more and more out of order. You're out of order. So ways that we can think about this without having to think about it, right, is bring both your feet together such that we have our knees and our thighs smushed. And that way, one is going to make it more difficult for you to be balanced and stable. Again, balance and stability is already an issue for you. By all means, give yourself a wider base, so that way you are able to stay balanced. But I would encourage you to every set or every workout session, see if you can't bring your feet a little closer together without changing the weight. This is a version of progressive overload also, y'all, right? You're still challenging the body in a slow, progressive manner. It may not be that you're getting heavier weights every time. Again, that's kind of a high schooler's version of progressive overload. Is every set has to be heavier. Every time I go to the gym or every time I lift weights, I should be seeing those numbers go up. First off, if you aren't on some sort of gear, right, we all have a limit that we're going to be able to do. Two, there's all kinds of ways of looking at progressive overload. There's more reps, time under tension, broader ranges of motion, so allow yourself, again, that little bit of grace of, like, it's not necessarily about that number on the side of the dumbbell. It's about what is the amount of stress we're able to exert on the body and, still be able to move around and live life. So again, even for this athlete, right, if we start bringing our feet a little closer together, this will do a couple of things. This will help them activate and be more active in this foot, which you can see it looks a little bit collapsed. You can even kind of see the knee. The knee is rotated out with the foot, which is good. So we don't see any tibial torsion. A lot of times we have this bone here can be rotated, and that will end up creating knee issues or hip issues for people. But again, that little adjustment will go a long ways into all of it. Now, let's see the lift again real quick. Scratch the face. So let's watch how the body moves, right? We see like the chest kind of goes back, and then as the weights come down, we come back forward. Got a little of this rocking happening. If the body is a rocking, don't bother knocking. But again, having this idea that we are just a rigid pillar. So this goes for overhead press. Well, anything you do on your feet, but overhead press, bent over rows, bicep curls, was it the French press or the overhead cable extensions or whatever it is. Anytime we're on our feet and we're moving weights, have this idea that we'll first have this awareness, start working on this awareness, is are you moving? Like we were talking about the deadlift earlier, every lift the front rack squat earlier, right? Every lift is this game of maintaining this center of gravity. And so as these weights are down by our side, everything's stacked, everything's over our feet at that moment. So it's easy to maintain the center of gravity. But as we start lifting the weights up, well, now we have, depending on what she's using there, maybe it's 2.5 pounds each hand, maybe it's 10 pounds each hand, but we have somewhere between 5 to 20 pounds. What up? What up, Julie Sue? Good to see you. So even as we do this lifting, right, the body is going to want to lean back such that those weights are going to be a little bit more over our center of gravity. Right, and so we want to work on keeping that core forward as we lift. I believe I remember you. You popped in the other night and you were asking how old I was. So working on, again, that little bit of awareness. How you doing today? But working on that little bit of awareness, right, is going to, again, really engage your core in a different way. You're going to have to work your upper back in a completely different manner. You're going to feel a lot more. You have to work a lot more, again, on this core engagement. Almost bedtime. Yeah, I'm about to have to get out of here to go to work. But finding that center of gravity makes a huge difference on our lifts. You got any big plans for this evening? Just chilling on Twitch. What did I see? Are you asking me about something on, so you sent a whisper recently. Oh. I will say it wasn't. It was a little odd comment for me to read. But no, appreciate you being here. Hope everything's doing well for you. Just going over on Thursday mornings like we do. On grinding Gainz, looking at people's lifts, mostly my own. But if you got a lift that you want reviewed, then you can blur your face out if you like, or just Reddit. I'd never know it was you if you put your username in there that's different than Jewel, and then we can get you helping out with any exercise movement mechanics that you may be having. So in here, we're looking at lateral lunges. We've got about 10 minutes and I got a boogie. So on this lateral lunges are a great exercise, but I find them to be a fucking booger of a workout. And so what we see in this lift, or this effort, is not bad. Tear it apart though. So a couple of things I can see too is we already see that foot, like we're talking about. Oh, I need to check mark that one. Well, we can already see on this leg where we get that little externally rotated foot. So from the get-go, I feel that this person, the athlete's stance is a little narrow. I would almost maybe try to get their foot out to here if they could. So maybe in about a foot or half meter. Is that about right? Then we get out to there, and that's just going to help us again lengthen into those adductors a little bit more and help again get into some of those hamstring muscles as well. Now again, the big thing for me is this foot position. And we can see on the right foot, it's looking a little more square to the camera, like straight at us. Whereas if we look at this one again, it's just like we saw on the front raises, it's out to the side. Sorry, Jewel, we'll get to it here in a minute. I gotta take care of stream. And then, like I said, I gotta get to work later this morning. So again, as we look at my wife's lifts here, right? We can see how this knee looks a little bit caved in. And so even with this foot rotated outward this way, he really needs to try to drive this knee a little bit wider out. So that way, again, one, this is going to help activate more into the glute, but it's also going to help lengthen into the adductors, which is always something that we need more help with, I feel. Especially if we have a collapsing foot, if our foot arch is collapsed, if we have what's referred to as like a valgus knee, right? Those are going to be indications of overactivity in the inner thigh. Going to be indications of a sleepy booty. The glute's not as engaged during the lift as it needs to be. So first things first would be, again, turn that heel out, or again, just turn the toe in such that we get a square foot. And then on these, just like I was talking about in the earlier on core engagement, for the front rack squat, we want to think of our shoulders and our hips staying square and even. And then between our shoulders down to the pelvis, right, our spine should be in a line, and thus we create this, what I see as like a capital I, or again, a Roman numeral 1. However, again, your mind jumps to it. And so when we're creating this lift, or we're doing this lateral lunge, we want to maintain the integrity of that I as we're going to the left and to the right. And so a lot of times, and we kind of see a little bit of it, but sometimes we get the shoulders going too far. We'll do, Miss Jewel. Right, and we're gonna try to again work on keeping those shoulders driving, not letting them go too far to the side. And I even think about it, we can see a little bit of like this left shoulder kind of rolling and rotating towards this right shoulder rotating in towards this left knee. We're going to be mindful of that and try to, even when I'm doing this for myself and when I'm cueing it with clients, it's almost like we want to rotate this shoulder back. It feels weird, but I'm like trying to bullet time from the matrix as we get into there. The other cue commonly I'll have to refer to people is, again, trying to sit back a little bit more into the non-working leg. And this can be kind of weird for people in that we want to think about, we're always thinking that, like I always cue again, ankle, knee, and hip, trying to keep them in a nice straight line as best we can. However, what also needs to happen though is because we're hinging in this hip, we still need to get a little bit of hinge in this hip as well. And so if we were to be looking at this from a lateral view from her right side, all right, we'd have a, let's see if I can't draw this. Right, the body should be leaning forward and we'd have a slight, like if that was our leg, the straight leg, right, that it would kind of look like that leg was out there, and then our other leg would be in its kind of bent position into that lunge position. Very terrible drawing. God bless. Then we got our dome right here. All right, so we're still getting both hips to go back, but again, still working to keep our shoulders and our hips square and creating that eye shape. And so it's not so much that we want to keep this, we want to keep the, not so much in straight on, it's going to be a kind of like a little taper, but we still have that straight line occurring between the hip and the ankle. And that's always a tough thing I feel for lateral lunges. And for this athlete, I think, again, wider stance would be huge. And then making sure, again, we get that good hips back. Also, growing up, we played this game called musical chairs. And you had like 10 participants and 9 chairs, and the music stops and everybody scrambles to get into a chair. There's always this idea in my mind, like, you try to slide into the chair. You want to get both hips back, not just the working hip, but again, get that other hip sitting back as well. And if you're looking at it from your perspective, it would maybe look like the straight leg is kind of in front of you to some degree. Here we are again, looks like the right side. So quickly again, got 3 minutes. Probably should have already left, but it's okay. So again, real quick here, we see here this unconscious bias. All right, it's even more expressed here. That toe rotating out. And so for this person, they need to really focus on keeping their feet parallel, even though they're doing this lateral lunge, right? Now, if there are variations where people like to turn their toe up to the sky on their lateral lunge and it's going to hit a different part of that straight legs, hamstrings, and what have you, and that's fine because that's a conscious choice, right? That's a conscious bias occurring. What's happening here, and probably for 80% of anybody who's doing these exercises, is we don't realize this is happening, nor do we realize the difference, the angle between the 2 feet. So those are going to be some things that I would really try to encourage this individual to focus on and see that and see how it hits different. And let's see here too, we can kind of see, that was a better bit right there. All right, you can see how the shoulders are kind of, again, maybe getting a little further out. We need more of the hips going back on that left side as well. And so again, like any leg effort I think about, we're thinking about weight in the heel, but keeping our tripod foot, creating that hip hinge and bending the knee to lower ourselves and just practicing that. And again, doing it in front of a mirror is excellent, just so you can kind of sense it and feel it. And then even there we saw on the way up. So we see how on that one is the hips are kind of leading versus the body and hips moving as one. Again, just core engagement and some awareness makes it a lot more difficult. There we go, that looked a little better. Hip hinge, seating into it. And we don't want to leave, it's like you don't want to leave anybody behind, right? Like, You want to be kind of rigid through the whole body. The hips and the shoulders move as one. All right, y'all. Well, I wasn't able to get to today's lifts. Like I said, I got to get to work today, a little earlier session. Got to make my Twitch money. So, as I always say, if you got any questions, any concerns, if you're needing some help with your lifts, that's why we have this channel, RangeFitnessOnline, RFO John. Feel free to hop into our subreddit if you do have a lift that you want us to look at and have some help with. It could be a lift, it could just be, hey, when I lift my arm up like this, it hurts. Show us, give us a little video or a picture of it, and then we can use that to help identify where your muscle imbalances may be, and even offering some correctives to help you with that. Last little thing is, again, if you are looking for a workout, again, I ain't gonna write it for you. I can barely write my own workouts. But we do have an LLM prompt for you that you can use to get into and give us some information about your goals, what you maybe, the time frame you have, the equipment access, if you have any injuries that you're working for or working with, and fill in that prompt and it will spit you out again. It should work with any AI that you'd like. So without further ado, y'all, I gotta get boogieing because I don't know what traffic's like and I got a bit of a haul. So Jewel, thank you for being here. I'll check your whisper out here later this afternoon or later today and get back to you. Thank y'all for everybody else out there. And as always, stay mindful as fuck and don't compensate. Yeah. Y'all be well. Have a great day.